Bam! MC is in the house. What's up, folks? My name is Justin Garcia, also known as Master Chim, and welcome to the Warrior Stream. I'm here every Wednesday at noon Eastern Standard Time, taking a topic deep dive and having a good time while doing it. Let's get some housekeeping in order here. If you guys are not getting my emails, you are messing up. Make sure that you guys are going to masterchimletter.com. Link is in the description. Right now, I'm streaming on a couple of Facebook pages, on my main Master Chim official YouTube page. And again, if you guys aren't getting the emails, messing up. There's other links and stuff. You can go check that out at your leisure. But make sure you're getting the emails. All right. So who do we got here so far? Jesse, what's going on, brother? Jan Saxa, what's up, darling? Good to see you. Guys, always feel free to say what's up. I like seeing who's hanging out with me every Wednesday. We usually have the same cast of characters, which I appreciate, and some good talks that you guys are privy to. Jamie and Aaron, what's going up? My couple up in Canada. Good to see you too. All right. So I sent out a email this morning about the topic of today, and the topic I decided on man fans, right? Man fans. And I never phrased it that way, but after I wrote that in today's email, I knew it would be something that was going to stick moving forward, right? So obviously you guys should have seen in the thumbnail for today's show, a man watching a football game, dressed like a Viking, but being basically morbidly obese. His kids also, looking pretty weak. And it's one of these things that when we look at society today, we'll see that there are going to be standards that people will follow. And a lot of these standards are based on premises that were installed, that were given to them. And most of the time in today's society, these standards and premises were given to people by entities, by identities, by groups that have absolutely no vested interest in the success of the people who are taking those premises and standards, etc. Well, today I decided to, basically just use the backdrop of sports to expand on some of these concepts. And I'm going to start with the email questions that I posed as a sort of guide, a framework for the talk. As I'm talking about these things, if there's any topics or questions related to this that you guys have, please put them in, and I'll try to hit the comments as much as I can to stay on top of them. I want you guys, since you're hanging out with me, to have me address anything that you want to discuss concerning the topic at hand, of course. So the first thing that I put in today's email in a question form is, what is the difference between worship and honor in practice? And I think that at the heart of much of my criticism for the modern sports fan, at the heart of it is this actual idea, the difference between honoring and worshiping. I have my own beliefs, my own religious beliefs, and I don't worship anything. I honor a great deal. And not getting into the specifics of my belief system, because it's not really relevant. But this one, the distinction is, I am not somebody who advocates for worshiping anything. But a lot of times, like a lot of things that modern day society sort of succumbs to, is the ambiguity of the terms that they're using. So many people will think, well, honoring a god, worshiping a god are the same thing. And I beg to differ, right? So let's get into the distinction between those two terms, right? So first, honoring. If you guys have read Tribalnomics, you know that honoring is, or honor is the currency of virtue in tribe, right? Having a group of people sort of together collectively invested in a mission. The things that are on mission are said to be honorable. Things that are anti-mission are said to be dishonorable. Well, when we honor something, it means we're showing an appreciation. We're showing or recognizing their virtues, achievements, the movements in those directions, those mission-based directions. You can acknowledge somebody without, attributing some sort of deference to a thing. You don't need to sort of value yourself. There needing to be some sort of comparative observation in order to honor something. You could honor something, for the merits that it possesses or the merits that it deserves. Things like traditions and elders, the wisdom that the elders have in a group, ancestors, what they represented, the things that we attribute to them in terms of their value, what they've invested in us, who are the shoulders that we stand on, as a people, mentors, principles, all these things we could honor. The modeled behavior of excellence in a given discipline. We could honor those things, meaning we could liken those attributes to the virtuous movements of what we believe in, what we stand for. But worshiping is a different story. Worshiping, it involves a deeper, more committed level of reverence, a level of almost devotion, a level of almost submission to another who is displaying these attributes. There could be virtuous attributes that somebody or something is emulating or conveying or displaying, and there is a comparative dynamic when we worship. We say this thing is superior to us in certain ways. This thing is more powerful than us in certain ways. In order to sort of give them this reverence, we feel we must pay for that reverence by taking away something of us. Usually, worshiping is, I guess maybe historically is the right word to use. It's reserved for gods, for deities, for, religious identities that people have followed, supernatural beings and supernatural concepts, and there is a sort of a limit to the accountability of what it, not that there isn't an accountability to be directed, but there is a limit if we're talking about worshiping identities generally of the transcendent. That's superior to me. Well, it's not going to be as dangerous potentially, as self-destructive potentially, as worshiping something that is not transcendent. And that is sort of the heart of what, today's topic, sort of was born from. This idea of worshiping things that are not transcendent. Right? So I talked about, how I came about with the name, or maybe I didn't, I just shared the name, but how I came about the name of today's talk, man fans, are the fanatics who I would say who worship the accolades and achievements of other men. In this acknowledgement of another man's power, there is a deference and a devotion and a rational, even protection of and devotion to other individuals that in no way inspires the increase in the individual who's worshiping's power. The worshiper is not pressured to become more by worshiping another. And we see this. Sports is the easy modern society example. I'm sure there are plenty of examples of this throughout history. But worshiping is this idea of they're better than me, with the complete lack of acknowledgement for the capabilities of an individual to be just as good or valuable as them. That's what makes this different than worshiping a deity. And even though that's something I don't sign off on, there is an absolute difference that has to be acknowledged between worshiping something that is transcendent, something whose identity is almost an abstraction in its transcendence, and worshiping something that is fallible, observable, and I would say even comparable to the individual doing the worshiping. When we honor things, we we tie that to concepts like respect and duty and virtue and value, and but the difference again is the agency that is lost in somebody who is dead set on worshiping another identity. You lose a little bit of yourself just to give power and adulation to another when we worship. Right? So when I look at the the fans of sports, and this is not only about sport fans, it's just these sport fanatics are such a great example of this run amok. But you'll see this with celebrity worship. Like I was making I think I was joking around this morning on my mastermind call. We were talking about a professional athlete. I'm not going to get into his names, sidetrack the conversation, but a professional athlete who was very, very successful, but a little bit of a social retard. I don't know. Is that politically correct? A little bit of a social retard. And I said, well, this is what happens when you have a society that has been conditioned to worship excellence, to worship mastery in a way that those that are excellent, that are perceived to be masters, are given agency over superiority over the individuals doing the worshiping. Such that in this particular case, I said this individual, I was talking about a jiu-jitsu competitor, super, super talented. I said, this guy is an incredible talent, an incredibly accomplished technician in the sport that he participates in. But at some point, the mastery that he exhibited in this realm of grappling inspired somebody to ask his opinion on other things. And this is what people who are used to worshiping will fall into. Well, if he's this good about this, he must be good about everything. You see this with athletes, you see this with celebrities, leaders of industry, somebody that has demonstrated an elite, in some cases, world-class level of ability in a given discipline, is given this sort of broad brush pass on having value and it's worth listening to him talk about anything. And he's never really qualified himself as having anything valuable to offer outside of the realms of or the boundaries of his given discipline. Yet people who love worshiping, it's a very, very easy transition for them to make. Right? So let me get to Aaron says, Jamie has always said the man who wants to wear another man's name on his back, sports are gay. In fact, he actually got that from you. I was going to say, well, Jamie's in good company because I've actually made a couple of podcast episodes on that back in the day. And it is one of these things that is just like modern society. Like, you guys remember the movie They Live, where Roddy Piper had the glasses and he could see what was going on, and the aliens walking around with those weird, fucking skinned looking faces, those alien faces. Sometimes, like, I'll be honest, I'm dealing with society in all the ways that I must, right? And every once in a while something will pop up and it'll just be a complete mystery to me how nobody else is reacting to it the way I do. One such example is having the names of other men on your back. Buying a jersey, let's say I don't know, let's pick one. Michael Jordan, right? He's kind of famous, right? I'm going to go to the store and excuse me, sir. Can I have that? Do you have that Michael Jordan jersey in an extra large, please? And then I go and I try it on, and it'll probably be a little tight. I'll probably need a 2X, but let's just say it fits, right? And then I look at it. I'm looking at the mirror. It's like, do I look at the name? Like my face with the name Jordan on my back, like, is that a feeling that people get? And then they go, I'll take it, right? And then they walk around with their Michael Jordan jersey on, right? And other men are looking at them. And the only thing worse than men being disgusted that they're wearing the name of another man, on their body, as almost like, I used to say back in the podcast episode I did on this, like, that's what the girlfriends used to do in, like, football. Like, the girlfriends, the day of the game, used to wear the jerseys of their boyfriends that were on the team, right? So the thing that's the only thing that's more disgusting than people, looking at that and just being completely, annoyed or disgusted themselves with seeing that, are the people or the men who would look at a man wearing the jersey with the name of another man on his back, look at that man and going, yeah, that's a Michael Jordan jersey. Like, yeah, this, I don't even know I don't know where the logic brings them. Like, what, like, they approve of it, obviously. Maybe they give them, a nod, but is it like, is it two people that are like part of a club, like acknowledging each other? Like two gay guys at a party, like give the wink, and they go to the rest stop. Do they go to the rest stop? They just find a spot? I don't know. But you have this connection that I just don't get. What is behind, or what is the explanation of the approval of somebody who looks at that? Now, it might be a status thing in terms of the jersey's expensive, right? So where I grew up in the Bronx during the 80s and 90s, like there were dudes who were getting stabbed over coats. I get that social phenomenon, right? But the jersey thing, oh, you see, he's got that new Michael Jordan jersey, right? I don't get it. I just don't fucking get it. Is it a fashion thing? But if you had it without the name, would it be as fashionable? If the number was different? No. Well, because then you have to acknowledge that the fashion value, is that a fucking thing? The fashion value of the shirt would be tied to his actual number and name on it. Because if you just had which is, it's still bad, but not as worse, but like just having like a Chicago Bulls jersey, it's like, oh, you play for the Bulls? No, that's just my team. Oh, you're an owner? No, it's just that's my favorite team. So you're wearing the uniform they wear, because it's different. It's different. I guess there's a hierarchy of just how fucking gay this could be, right? Maybe like a T-shirt, a Chicago Bulls T-shirt, it might be a little less bad. I refuse to say better, less bad than a Chicago Bulls jersey, but maybe the jersey is less bad than the jersey with the name on it. Like there's a hierarchy of this shit. But anyway, it comes down to people adding value to the accomplishments and the status of other men, in which they are in no way connected to, associated with, other than the investment of their resources in adorning the superficial uniforms of these individuals. It doesn't make sense, right? Doesn't make sense. So, what was the next question I had? What do sports provide for the modern man? Okay, so I grew up playing sports. I grew up playing baseball, football, basketball. I did judo. I wrestled. Eventually, I started Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I got black belts in jiu-jitsu and in judo. I've competed in tournaments in both of them. I competed in bodybuilding, powerlifting. Like, I've played a lot of sports. I'm a fan of sports. There's something different when people look to continue their alliance with these sports without they themselves participating in it. Now, again, I think it is worthwhile to honor those that display and represent the attributes that you yourself aspire to display and achieve yourself. The comeback fighter who pushes through all the obstacles of a fight and comes out on top with the last second knockout, the dramatic Rocky type, story arc, like everybody can appreciate that, because we could say, yeah, we want to have something in our life or something in our personality specifically that allows us to push through those obstacles. Like there's all automatically a correlative to our real life. You lose that when you start worshiping sports. You lose that when you start worshiping athletes, because now it's not the observation and acknowledgement and approval of an individual demonstrating certain behaviors that you want to also demonstrate in your own life. No, now it's and I said this on the thumbnail, it's the guy whose team wins the big game and they scream, "I did it," or "We did it," as if they actually contributed to the outcome of this game. Little gay, right? So, what do sports do for men? Well, it demonstrates adversity. It demonstrates, I think all children should play sports. Even in the world of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I own a martial arts school, right? Part of the martial arts curriculum I teach is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I don't own a sport school. Whenever I hear people or see people on social media refer to the the greater group of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu participants, as participants of our sport, like in our sport. One of the great things about our sport, it's like, what's this fucking sport everybody's talking about? I understand that there's competition, but is that the entirety? They talk about martial arts, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in this case, like somebody would talk about football, like somebody would talk about basketball. And again, this is not so much a value judgment as it is me saying that is not what I do. It's not my relationship with this. So again, what does sports do? Well, given that I'm saying I am not somebody that identifies what I do as a sport by any means, one of the rituals that we perform in the training for what it is that we do is competition, is the sportive aspect of what we're doing. So what does that look like? That looks like me telling people at some point they should compete, because at some point the pressure that they need to continue their development is to be found in a competition. It's to be found in a sport. So for me, it is a necessary rung on the ladder, but it is not the totality of what this endeavor should be. And that's where I run in a different direction than some people. Like, they're comfortable just treating Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or it could be any other martial art, like sport karate. You've seen this. I'm not very educated on the origins of Taekwondo, but I know in its sportive, environment and culture, it is not looking to have people actually do violence in a real reality type scenario. So it's a different mission. So again, sports has value, but it has value as a sort of playground or a laboratory to either perform or observe men overcoming adversity, that a correlation could be drawn to an individual's own life outside of sports. But you will have world champions in a sport that are deadbeat fathers, that are drug addicts, that are, criminals, that are thieves, that are, not that criminal generally is a bad thing, but you understand what I'm saying. You'll have bad people who don't have any other redeeming quality other than their ability to win a game. And society gives these people a pass. Right? It's not something that I sign off on. Jamie says, back in my superhero RPG days, everyone wanted to be Wolverine or Superman. I wanted to be a superpowered me. Right on. That's exactly right. Exactly right. So next question. When it comes to sports, this is the questions that I put in the email. When it comes to sports, where does the point of diminishing returns appear? Well, as I mentioned before, there is a point where the pressure that in participating in sports, there's a point where the pressure is no longer making you better at anything other than the sport. At that point, if you want to continue, by all means, continue. Some people love competing regularly. I never really liked competing, and I said this to my students. My students like, what do you mean? Like, so I competed a lot. I won a lot of stuff. I fought professionally. I never wanted to fight professionally, because to me, there was always this like this artificial, thing connected to it that, like, I growing up, I played basketball every day. And I enjoyed being competitive. I enjoyed working with a team. I enjoyed beating another team, like that sort of domination. I enjoyed a lot of aspects of the sport. But at no point did I say that, I was going to do this as a means of being me. It was always a way for me to invest energy in an outcome that allowed me to experience these different things that may not have been readily available to experience in my everyday life. So sport does have that value. Sport has the ability to create a positive ritual that's tied into, health and teamwork and and focus. It's one of those things where, somebody who's part of some sort of a league, sports league, it sort of keeps them connected to something that in some ways allows them to maintain the balance that the rest of their life, requires. So there is a point where sports has value. What is the point of diminishing returns when the only thing participation in the sport offers is being better at the sport itself? At that point, I would say to do it as a hobby or to do it as some sort of pastime that you enjoy, there's always an argument for that. But the inherent value of sports, I think, begins to diminish at that point. People who don't play sports, you almost want to say you should play sports. And if they ask why, you can give them a whole bunch of reasons. Well, the point of diminishing returns is when all those reasons are already accomplished, all those boxes are already checked. Now it's like if you're doing it now, it's just because you enjoy doing it, right? Which, again, there's an argument for that, but I think the distinction needs to be made, right? So the last question I have that I posed in the email, what are the modern man's alternatives? What are the modern man's alternatives? Well, first with sports, right? So I think sports is a value add, professional sport leagues, that's something different. I'm not somebody who thinks in any way that our society suffers if professional sports goes away. But I do understand its role in maintaining the culture that inspires and drives so many other people to participate in the sports. I think when we're looking at sports, though, we should be taking on a philosophy, a mindset of honoring those attributes that the athletes of these sports, demonstrate. The discipline, the work ethic, the achievements that they accomplish. There are all these things, watching, an NBA basketball player shoot a foul shot, a free throw with thousands of people trying to distract him. And, like the amount of pressure, social pressure that is put on these people, and yet they still perform. Like that is an incredibly impressive accomplishment. And I think honoring those accomplishments has value, but I'm always going to argue against having their greatness somehow diminish the perception of your own self-worth. Their value has nothing to do with yours. If they're terrible, it doesn't make you any better. If they're incredible, it doesn't make you any worse. There is no connection between those, aside from the connection that we generate. And I would always argue that we should only be telling ourselves stories that make us more powerful. So worshiping another individual goes exactly against that, right? I think modern men, they tend to gravitate towards worshiping other men because they themselves don't have a relationship with their own physicality. People today spend, a disproportionate, when looked at historically, a disproportionate amount of time in their heads. We exist almost entirely in our heads these days. We're allowed to do that. I have a home. I have some property, not a huge property. I got a few acres, and whenever we have to do weed whacking or raking or blowing leaves, or like, it's a job. When you're doing that job, you're focused on the job. One of the things you're not focused on is all the shit that tends to sort of marinate in your head when you're not engaged in a physical job. One of my favorite things to do is go hiking, right? I've shared plenty of videos of me doing that. You guys know that. Well, when I'm hiking and I'm in the woods and I'm engaging terrain and looking at wildlife and maybe I'm even listening to an audiobook at the time, I am not connected to all the abstractions that tend to get in the way. So I think when looking at sports, like, yeah, there's plenty of people that you could see demonstrating the types of attributes that you yourself would want to be connected to. But all that should do is inspire you to actually go and do something. We need to stop becoming worshipers of our fellow man. One of the things that we benefit from when we worship other men, or arguably one would benefit from, is there's a lack of accountability. There's less of a pressure for you to do something physical or impressive if you associate yourself with individuals who do things physical and impressive. So by worshiping other men, it's yet another escape that modern men create for themselves that absolves them of the accountability and feedback and oversight from having to actually be worth the shit. Nietzsche would say that worshiping anybody else is sort of neutering, oneself. There is a point where the passion and fire that we like our identity has for the adventure of life is somehow dissipated. It's reduced. It's muffled, repressed when we worship other people. It's like we're going to virtually be a part of somebody else's adventure, virtually be a part of somebody else's accomplishment. And if you don't think that that's an actual thing that happens, go look at a man when his team wins the big game and how he acts. That's probably broken. I got fired up. I knocked something off my desk. But looking at a man react like that to the winning of a game will tell you everything you need to know about the feedback that his body is experiencing at the moment that he's doing it. Like, I remember when I won my first MMA fight, there was so much energy and emotion and just fire that I remember just like giving this like scream, this like primal scream. It wasn't planned. I wasn't communicating. It was like just my subconscious on autopilot. It just happened. And afterwards, it's like, all right, you look a little nuts doing that. And, as soon as you bring the conscious mind and you start trying to rationalize, what it is that you're doing, yeah, that didn't make any sense, but nothing felt more natural at that moment. Well, that's what happens. That's what we're trained to experience, or trained. That's what we've evolved to experience when we accomplish things of that magnitude. Well, why is it that we found a way to feel like that without ever having to do anything for our family, for our lives, for the people that we're connected to, right? It's like, why are you men so happy and nothing has gotten any better for the people who you're connected to? Hopefully I'm making sense. It's just irrational. It's like, why are you so happy? Nobody in your tribe is better off because of this thing happening. So why would you be so happy? Why is this level of happiness, this level of celebration even possible without somebody in your tribe benefiting? If there's a point of diminishing returns, right? If there's a line, this is all the way on the other side of it, right? Jamie writes, some people will bemoan that all of the great explorations have already been conducted and take on a nihilistic, it's all been done view, but have never themselves gotten off their couch or discovered the end of the block they live on, let alone the world that is laid out before them. Yeah, and it's weak people think weak thoughts, have weak dreams. Small people have small thoughts, small dreams, and you can make a decision to be strong. You can make a decision to be big. You can make a decision to enter a pathway in life that is completely abnormal, completely anomalous to everybody around you. It's just a decision away. And once you make that decision, you realize that reality, the universe, whatever large scale framework you want to use, is always going to surpass your snapshot of it. Everything is always bigger than the everything that you could understand, right? All right, guys, let's call it there. I went over some good stuff. As far as I'm concerned, I did, right? Certainly everything that I wanted to. I appreciate you guys. I'll be here next week. Again, if you guys are not getting my emails, please go to masterchimletter.com. There's links in the description, no matter where you're watching it. But I will be here next week. And as always, brothers and sisters, pressure to power.